I'm Gina.
I'm Carmen with Living Life Forward, rising above challenges and turning dreams into reality.
Today we're continuing discussing our topic, the importance of stopping negative self talk.
If you missed part one, please go and watch it for some helpful tools and examples of how to stop negative self talk.
Yes, absolutely. So we just want to pick up where we left off with talking
Mm-hmm.
about giving you all some tools. Another helpful way is to stop feeling negativity with words like always and never. And I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Carmen, that's not part of my vocabulary, always and never, because I've learned those words are not beneficial.
I know it's kind of hard to come up with examples of those because, like you,
Mm-hmm.
I've, they're not part of my vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that is that when I was a professor, I would tell students who would say, well, um, I always get bad grades.
Mm-hmm.
Well, always?
Yeah.
You've never had a remotely good grade in your
Right,
life?
right,
So
right.
it's kind of like when you say those words, always or never, you have to think about that.
You do. You
So
do.
does that mean truly always? It always happens that way, or it
Right. And
never
it never
happens for
happens.
me?
Right.
Because if you can even think of one example,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that was good, that something
Right.
good did happen,
Right.
then that's a false.
Right. It is
It's
false.
it's false.
It is false. And I think probably 9 times out of 10, it is false.
Yes.
I think it's really not always or never. But I think those words, they just get stuck. The seed's been
Yeah.
planted,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and it's not a good seed to have planted.
I think that those seeds can get planted from when we're children
Sure.
because, like, kids will say, well, I never get to do that.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Or
yeah, for
you
sure.
always let my brother
Brother
do
deal with that.
that.
Yeah, definitely in siblings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those things get ingrained in us.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Those words get ingrained
Mm-hmm.
in us. And so you and I both, have somehow managed to just kind of put those outside of our
Right.
thoughts and our vocabulary.
Right. I think because we've learned that they're not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
They're not helping us on our journey
Mm-hmm.
because we want to have like a positive lifestyle. We want to live a positive, healthy life
Yes.
and to move forward in life. And so you've got to find words that fit into your vocabulary that are going to be uplifting and positive and not hold you back.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this ties into what we talked about in the first part of this topic in our previous podcast, is that when you say something like, well, I never, or I always, it always, I'm always broke or whatever, to ask yourself, is that true?
Right.
That was one of
Absolutely.
the tools, was ask yourself, is that true or is it
Right.
false?
Right. Absolutely. And I think the other thing too, that's a great example you just gave, saying I'm always broke. Well, you know what? If you're going to say you're always broke, you're always going to be
Mm-hmm.
broke.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
when you say things like that, it's going to happen. You're speaking it out into existence. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like almost where you're saying like words are like magic
Words have
and
power.
they're very powerful. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to sit here and say you're broke, well, I guess you're broke.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sit up here and complain about that you're broke because you don't have any money because you're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to change that mindset and change those words around and saying, I am I am financially abundant,
Mm-hmm.
or I am bringing in more money, or I am abundant. Anything that's going to change that, you can't just say I'm always broke.
Well, and one of the tools that I learned for, like, saying, because I used to say this, I did
Mm.
used to say this, is
Mm.
that I can't afford that.
Yeah.
Well, is that true?
Mm-hmm.
And um, and to replace that with, well, I choose not to spend my money on that
There
at
you
this
go.
time.
There you go.
So it's just,
Yeah,
restating it.
exactly. And changing the words
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
Exactly.
and that you're not always that
Right,
way.
exactly. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So the next one is daily affirmations.
Yes. Daily affirmations rewire your brain. And so with that, that's what we've been talking about this whole time, is that we're rewiring our brain. Rewiring our brain, and that's not going to be an overnight thing, right? It takes time. It has taken time to get us here, to have planted these negative seeds. It's going to
Mhm.
take time to rewire the brain.
Mhm.
And so, once again, it goes back to our previous podcast where we gave some tools where it talked about give yourself grace, give yourself, we are human beings,
Mhm.
give yourself, don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself the time to actually implement this because it's not going to be overnight.
Right.
And don't be so hard on yourself.
And this really ties into a topic that we'll be discussing more in an upcoming podcast, is about that we actually do have pathways in our brain, neural pathways, and that what that they wire, that they actually wire together. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, it's going to wire,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll connect. Yep.
and you will actually be um, like making ruts kind of in your brain,
Yeah.
in your neural pathways that are negative.
Yeah, I
And
was
the
gonna
more
say negative.
negative that you think,
Yeah.
the more negative, the deeper those ruts will get, and it'll be
Right.
harder to replace those with positive thoughts.
Right, absolutely. And I'm just thinking about that when you're talking about creating those negative ruts. Think about that. That's in your brain. That's going on the inside internally.
Mhm.
Can you imagine what that's doing, externally?
Mhm.
How is that being exemplified in your world? And
Mhm.
what does that look like?
Yes, and it is possible to change those ruts into positive rivers in your
Right.
brain.
Which is great.
There's a few neuroscientists
Mhm.
that we can talk about in an upcoming
Yeah.
podcast that do talk
Fantastic.
about how the tools to rewire your brain when you find yourself in a rut of negative thinking.
That's good.
Or
That's great.
worry or whatever it may be.
I think that'd be fantastic, and that would be
Mhm.
very helpful to ourselves and to our viewers out there. So I think that'll be great. Fantastic.
So the next one also is to silence your inner critic.
Mhm.
And this is especially for perfectionists
Mhm.
like myself, who just always, it just can never, it's never good enough.
Yeah.
Like my writing is never good enough.
Mhm.
Or, you know, something that we do is never good enough, that we need to try to make it perfect.
Right.
But there is no perfect.
Right.
It's like this podcast we just kind of flubbed up a little bit. It's
Yeah.
perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, it's okay.
You know?
Yeah. You just have to give yourself the grace, and it's okay if it's not perfect.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think when it's not perfect, that's when it comes out the best.
Yes.
So and embracing that, right? And then also the other thing is focus on your strengths and wins.
Mhm.
And I think that we get so caught up like thinking in the negative that we forget to celebrate those strengths and wins.
Yes.
And I think those little strengths and wins, because they could be baby steps. Nobody says you have to take leaps and bounds.
Mhm.
Even those little baby steps, take that time to celebrate it. Celebrate and be like,
Yes.
you know what? I did this. You know what? I've been I wanted to save X amount of money for like the holidays are coming up, or, so I can buy gifts or whatever. And I did it. Celebrate that.
Yes.
Celebrate that.
Yes. Because if you are a perfectionist, or you have that strong inner critic,
Yeah.
that's always criticizing things that you do that it's not good enough,
Right.
that to think about those little wins. Well, I did this, or I accomplished that, no matter how small it is. And I think we said in a previous podcast, talked about that a little bit, to write that down.
Right.
To
absolutely.
write down your accomplishments.
Yes.
And
Yes.
to acknowledge them.
Right. I think
And
that's
that will
important.
help. That will help overcome that negative
Yes.
thinking, that inner critic also.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Miss Carmen. I'm definitely one about writing things down and to release, just to have an outlet, because that's important. You've got to be able to do that. But definitely those strengths and those wins.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Next, we're going to talk about taking action against fear behind the thought. Action pushes through the fear. And I think that is so powerful in itself, because you have to do something. We've talked about this, amongst us, Ms. Carmen, where you have to do something. You can't just not do anything. And I have gone back to like our previous podcast where it's like, even if it's the smallest thing, of being aware of that negative thought, that negative self-talk. It doesn't have to be something that's huge, but just being aware of like, oh, okay, I'm having a negative thought right now. Stop. Just acknowledging that and being aware of that, you just did something.
Yes, and I've seen a thing before where you write down, what your main negative thoughts are,
Yes.
or like I'm afraid to do this,
Mm-hmm.
or I can't do that,
Mm-hmm.
or I feel depressed, or
Yeah.
I'm having anxiety, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then right next to that, right, what is the opposite of that? What
Mm-hmm.
is the positive side of that?
Right.
Like I'm depressed. Well, I feel happy about this,
Yeah.
or I'm having anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like in the last podcast, to bring yourself into the moment and to be grateful
Yeah.
in the present moment of something.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's so
But to
important.
to write those down, those negative things, and replace them with positive
Right. I
thoughts.
think that's really, really good.
Hmm.
That's actually a wonderful time to be doing that when it's like a full moon when you're getting ready to release things.
Hmm.
Fantastic time to do that. Which a
Yeah.
full moon is coming up this week, by the way,
Oh
on
yeah.
the 4th, which will be the last full moon of the year.
Oh
Just wanted to throw
wow.
that in there real quick. But
Wow.
yes, the last full moon of this 2025, which is
Hmm.
wild to say
Oh
that.
wow. Yeah.
But yeah, but I think that's a great time to do that. So you're releasing things, and that way
Yeah.
you can get ready to bring new things in.
And negative thoughts really are mostly, if you think about it, probably are based in fear.
Oh, for sure.
Like
Oh,
anxiety.
yes.
Like I had
Yep.
mentioned about having
Mm-hmm.
anxiety for many years.
Yeah.
That root of that is fear,
Yes, it is.
or the
Mm-hmm.
root of depression is fear. The fear
Absolutely.
of, I've read that is depression is the fear of the past, of something
Yeah,
that happened in the past,
it is.
and
Okay.
that you can't do
Oh,
anything
yeah,
about.
that
You
you
can't
sure can't.
undo it.
See, you can't.
And that can, when you think about that, that can bring that fear into the present
Right.
also.
Absolutely.
And the anxiety is the fear of the future that hasn't
Hmm.
happened yet.
Right.
So
Right. You see how that ripple effect there?
yeah.
What's happening in the past can affect your current, can affect your future.
Yes.
That's why it's like you've got to have that realization of like understanding of wow, like the past, I can't do anything about
Hmm.
it. And I think with that, that takes some healing in itself, right? To
Yes. That's a
come,
long process
yes, it
too.
is, to having to deal with that, to heal from the past in order to
Hmm.
move forward and not worry about the future, but stay present. And
Yes.
that's a process too, for sure.
Yes. And
Mhm.
like the past, that you can't do anything about the past doesn't mean that you don't have memories or things like
Right,
that,
right.
but that if something negative has happened to you in the past, or something
Hmm.
traumatic, or you've made a terrible mistake in the past or whatever,
Hmm.
is to take the lessons from that and
Absolutely.
then bring them forward, and then
Right.
let all of the negative inner critic and
Hmm.
fear and all that go,
Hmm.
but bring the lessons of it.
Absolutely, because there are lessons.
Hmm.
Oh, there's a lot of lessons that we all learn, right?
Yes,
Right.
that help us to grow, help us to get
Absolutely.
stronger.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And acknowledging and recognizing them and not ignoring those lessons.
Right.
I think that's really critical too, because even though sometimes those lessons, they're not fun, but nobody said healing is, because
Right.
it's not fun. It's not
No.
rainbows and unicorns. That's just what healing is. Healing is getting into the depths, into the trenches of the not so funness. It's the
Mhm.
getting into the depression, getting into the sadness, all those not so fun
Mhm.
emotions, but recognizing what those lessons are that can propel and give growth and
Mhm.
evolution. And that's what's important.
Mhm.
And just acknowledging that. And that's not easy. That is not easy
It's
at
not
all.
easy, and
Because a
as
lot
a
of people don't want to do that because you have to do something, and a lot of people
yes,
don't want to do anything.
yes,
So you have to be, brave and courageous to really want to do that and really
yes.
want to heal to move forward.
And I can relate as a widow that
Mm.
healing, it can sometimes be a lifelong
Yeah, and
process.
that's okay.
Yeah, that's
That's
okay,
okay.
because every little step, even
Mhm.
if you fall, if you stumble, if you have to crawl, at least you're
Yeah.
moving
Right.
forward.
Right.
Don't be stuck in
Hmm.
the past. And I
Right.
think this also relates to when we talked about earlier about um, limit our exposure to negative
Hmm.
people. Is
Yeah.
that there are people that will, they'll say, well, you can never do that, or they're
Yeah.
criticizing of you.
Yeah.
And so to put yourself with positive people that are encouraging
Yeah.
and to support you through your healing.
Absolutely. And I
Hmm.
think that is so very important is your environment, your
Hmm.
people that you surround yourself with daily on a daily
Yes.
basis. Are they uplifting you? Are they supporting you?
Hmm.
Are they being very encouraging? because I'm here to tell you, if you're in an environment where the environment are not supportive and encouraging you and uplifting you and having positivity, then you've got to make some changes. You've got to
Yeah.
make some changes because that's not going to help you and your well-being of evolving and moving forward and growing. It
Yes.
is actually hindering you, and the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can change, the sooner you can actually move forward.
And that doesn't mean that you reject your family or
No,
close
right,
friends who tend to be negative
right.
thinking, but a lot of times when I've been around people who are, talking negative stuff, maybe it's not appropriate for me to,
Yeah,
you know, um, say something back to them, but I will
mm-hmm.
think, I rebuke that, or I
Right,
don't agree with that. I'm
right,
thinking it's like I'm canceling that. I'm
right.
not accepting it.
Right,
That's their
absolutely.
thing. That's
Right.
not my thing.
Exactly. Another
Yeah.
example too that I use
Mhm.
all the time is I always say not mine to carry because
Yes.
that's not mine. That's like you said, that's their stuff and
Mhm.
I'm not carrying that. I'm like that's your stuff,
Mhm.
because you have and that's a good thing to say those things because that's boundaries. And
Yes.
boundaries are so important. And we'll probably do a podcast on that to be honest with
Yes.
you because they are
Yes.
so important. And
Mhm.
it's really not just to what's the word I want to say? Like it's really just like kind of protecting yourself
Mhm.
of not letting other people's emotions, how they feel, or their views really attack you. But you're
Yes.
just really putting up of like, hey, this is what I can take, and this is what I'm not going to take, and you're just putting that out there.
Yeah, and we can do podcasts on this also because putting up boundaries or not taking on other people's
Yeah.
negativity, that's a very challenging thing for people who have a strong inner critic,
Yep.
and for people who are empaths
Oh,
who
for
take
sure.
on other people's
Oh, yeah.
pain
That's
and
hard.
negativity and
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Right. And I think it's really good I think, for being an empath, because I can say I'm an empath,
Hmm.
you have to have those boundaries
Yes, you have to have
because you
boundaries,
can just pick up on a lot and
and
it's not even yours.
then you're absorbing all that
Yep,
negative
you are.
thinking.
But we'll talk
So,
about that in another podcast. But those are just some examples.
so another one is practicing mindfulness, which is
Mm-hmm.
includes journaling, like to write out all of the
Mm-hmm.
negative thoughts that you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling, or if you're having worries or
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling depressed, to have a journal and to just put it down on writing.
Right.
And I know that some people think, well, if I put it down in writing, doesn't that mean that I'm kind of like going to make it happen, or I'm going to make it worse? But that's not the case. You're
Right.
you're you're getting it out of your head
Right.
and onto the paper and
Right.
letting it go.
Right. You're releasing it. And I think that's also important. And even if you're not like a big journaler, like a lot of people, everybody's different, right? I have a journal. I actually have two different notebooks. I have one where I journal, and then I have one just like a notebook where I can just like not really journal, but I will like take scratch paper. Sometimes, like if I'm feeling a certain way or something and I want to release it, I'll write it out. And then what I'll do is I'll burn it or
Oh,
I'll rip it
yes.
up,
Yes.
one of those things. So my journal is like for kind of like when I really want to take time to actually write. But
Hmm.
it's something that I'm like, you know what, I just need to release these thoughts, or I need to write this letter,
Hmm.
and then I write it out, and then you can burn it. So most of the time, I try to
Hmm.
burn it or rip it up, and it's done.
Yes, and if you're having some really negative thoughts about someone, you're angry with them, or maybe it's someone that you can't approach in person. Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
someone even in your past that has passed away,
Yeah.
but you have all these negative thoughts, all
Oh
these,
yeah.
anger or whatever. Is to, like you said, to write a letter
Mm-hmm.
to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're alive, that doesn't mean you mail it to them. You're
Right.
writing, this is for you yourself to
It is.
release it.
Yep. It is for
And then,
yourself.
like you said, or even someone from the past, to get all of that out.
Yep.
And it really helps.
Oh, I
It
can
helps
tell you.
to clear all of those cobwebs out of your head.
Absolutely, I can definitely say that. Like I
Mhm.
had to write one about my ex, and I wrote the letter out, and I felt so much better, and I burned it afterwards. And let me tell
Mhm.
you, it went up just like that.
Mhm.
But it really does help. And I even told that to my son, the same thing. He was going through a hard time. I said, you need to write a letter to who you've got all these strong emotions towards, and because you have to do something with it, you've got to release it, because if you don't release it, that is staying in your body,
Mm-hmm.
and that is going to start affecting you physically.
Yes.
And so that's
Yes.
the whole point of this, is so it doesn't actually start affecting you physically. You've got to have a release, you've got to have an outlet.
Yes, because having negative thoughts all the time not only affects your brain, but it does. And that's a whole another
Yeah,
topic
it
too.
sure is.
Is as you can tell, we have a lot of topics coming up.
Right, we do.
Is that it settles in your body and it can affect
Yeah,
your health.
absolutely. And that's what you don't want.
Yeah.
It doesn't. So we really hope that you're able to utilize these tools. We went over a lot of great ones, and then we've thought of some more ideas that definitely are going to be coming for the future. But I also want to challenge you all with this. Taking a couple of these tools, I challenge you to actually use these tools and try them for 14 days. Do it
Yes.
for 14 days, come back and let us know what happened after that 14 days. Because doing it for that 14 days, you're actually creating a habit, and you're also going to see some results because you're actually taking that action, and that's what's important.
Yes, because 14 days isn't that long of a time. You know, like it's not like you have to do it. It can get overwhelming if you think about I'm
Right.
doing this forever.
Right. Right.
But yeah, that's a good point, Gina, is to do it for 14 days and just take 2 or 3 of these tools and focus on those,
Right.
on how to overcome and stop your negative thinking, whatever it may be.
Right.
Whatever
Absolutely.
that negative thinking may be for you.
Right. Baby
Yeah.
steps, right? No one
Baby
says you have to do
steps.
leaps and bounds. Baby steps, small things, and let us know.
And we'd
All right.
love to hear you in the comments.
Yes.
It will be helpful to us. It will be helpful to others.
Absolutely.
So we thank you for watching. And if this podcast, our topics that we discussed today resonate with you in some way, helpful in some way, please give us some likes and hearts, and please follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube so that we can grow our channels to be able to do this, because we love doing
We
this.
love doing this.
And it's helpful to us too to do this
Absolutely.
podcast. And so thank you for watching.
Okay. We'll see you soon.